It is a Tuesday afternoon at the grocery store. You walk past the produce section and there it sits, a whole green cabbage for $1.99, maybe $2.49 if prices are running high. Big, heavy, tight-leafed, enough food to feed a family if you know what to do with it. And most folks walk right past it. They will pay $6 for a bagged salad mix that wilts in 2 days. They will pay $8 for a tray of pre-cut vegetables in plastic. They will pay restaurant prices for roasted Brussels sprouts, glazed carrots, and fancy vegetable sides with names printed in script on the menu. But the cabbage sits there quiet. Why? Because most people have only ever had cabbage cooked the wrong way, boiled to death, gray-green, waterlogged, limp. The sort of vegetable people force themselves to eat because they were told it was good for them, not because anybody at the table truly wanted it. Now, I want to show you something. In Esther's kitchen, cabbage is not punishment food. It is not a desperate side dish. It is not something you boil without thinking and push around your plate with a fork. In an old farm kitchen, cabbage was one of the most dependable foods a household could keep on hand. Cheap, filling, good fresh, good cooked, good fermented, good stretched into soups and suppers when the pantry had to work a little harder. And when cabbage is cooked the old way, in a heavy pan with patience and proper heat, it turns sweet, rich, tender, and deeply savory. I am Elias Yoder. I am Amish and I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I grew up around kitchens where cabbage showed up in every season in one form or another, fried with onions, braised with butter, slow cooked with bacon drippings, folded into noodles, fermented into kraut. It was never treated like an afterthought because the old kitchens understood something modern kitchens often forget. Cheap vegetables are not cheap because they are bad. They are cheap because too few people remember how to cook them well. Today, I am going to walk you through the old farm kitchen way to cook cabbage so it becomes something your family actually wants to eat. By the end of this video, you will know why most cabbage fails, what the old cooks did differently, and how one head of cabbage can become one of the best dishes on your table for almost nothing. Quick word before I go further. The old methods my family uses, there is more of it than fits in any one video. Now, the old farm kitchen way, plainly. The first mistake most people make with cabbage is too much water. That is the whole failure in one sentence. They chop it, drop it into a pot, boil it hard, and what comes out is soft in the worst way. All structure gone, all sweetness diluted, all flavor running off into the cooking water. The old kitchens knew better. Cabbage does not need to be drowned. It needs to be coaxed. Esther's simplest cabbage starts with 4 things: 1 head of green cabbage, 1 onion, a couple tablespoons of butter or bacon drippings, and salt. Pepper at the end. Sometimes a splash of vinegar if the meal wants brightness. But the heart of it is cabbage, onion, fat, heat, and time. Start with a heavy skillet or a Dutch oven. Cast iron is best if you have it. Set it over medium heat and let it warm properly. Add the butter or bacon drippings. Then add 1 sliced onion and let it soften for several minutes until it turns translucent and just begins to sweeten. Now the cabbage. Take off the outer leaves if they are rough. Quarter the head, cut out the core, then slice it into ribbons. Not shredded like slaw and not great thick chunks either. Somewhere in the middle. Enough body so it keeps its character as it cooks. Pile that cabbage into the pan. It will seem like too much at first. It always does. But cabbage cooks down more than most folks expect. Add a good pinch of salt and begin turning it gently so the fat and onion coat the leaves. And now comes the part that changes everything. You do not boil it. You do not drown it. You let it cook in its own moisture. That is the old way. Cover it for a few minutes so the trapped steam begins softening the cabbage. Then uncover it and let that moisture cook away gradually while the bottom layers make contact with the hot pan. Stir every few minutes, not constantly. Let some edges catch a little color. Let some leaves turn silky while others keep a bit of chew. The chemistry, plainly. Cabbage is full of water and natural sugars. If you boil it hard in too much liquid, the water leaves the cabbage, the flavor thins out, and the sulfur compounds that give overcooked cabbage its bad reputation spread through the whole pot. That is the smell most people think cabbage must have. But if you cook cabbage slowly in a little fat, with just enough cover at the beginning to get it started, then let the moisture reduce away, something different happens. The natural sugars concentrate. The onion sweetens with it. The edges brown slightly. The cabbage turns tender without falling apart. Instead of smelling harsh, it smells rich and savory. That is the difference between boiled cabbage and cooked cabbage. One is endured. The other is remembered. Now, I want to be honest here because this is where most people lose patience. Good cabbage is not fast food, not if you want the old result. It takes about 25 to 35 minutes, depending on how much you are cooking and how tender you like it. But that is mostly unattended time. You are not standing there whisking a sauce or performing tricks. You are just letting the pan do what it was built to do. If Esther is making this as a fuller dish, not just a side, she will add one more old kitchen step, a little chopped bacon at the beginning, or a few spoonfuls of leftover ham near the end. Sometimes boiled noodles folded in, sometimes potatoes cooked separately and served alongside. That is how a cheap vegetable becomes a meal that fills people up and leaves nobody feeling shorted. And if the meal needs brightness, a teaspoon or two of apple cider vinegar at the end wakes the whole thing up. Not enough to turn it into pickled cabbage, just enough to sharpen the sweetness and richness already there. Now, here is where it all comes together. Look at what we are really talking about. A head of cabbage for $2, an onion, a little butter or bacon drippings, salt and pepper, maybe a splash of vinegar. That is a side dish for a whole family, sometimes more than one meal, for less than the cost of one fast food order of fries. And yet most folks pass right by it because they remember bad cabbage from a pot of boiling water and assume the vegetable itself is the problem. It is not. The problem was the method. The honest truth is, a great many cheap foods have been judged unfairly because somebody cooked them carelessly once, and everybody after that kept repeating the mistake. Cabbage is one of them. Liver is another. Cheap cuts of beef, dry beans, even potatoes. The old kitchens could not afford to waste food by cooking it badly, so they learned what each ingredient needed. Cabbage needed less water, more patience, and a pan that knew how to hold heat. There is no money in teaching people that one of the cheapest vegetables in the store becomes sweet and deeply satisfying with a little butter and half an hour in a skillet. There is a great deal of money in pushing people toward pre-made sides, frozen vegetable blends, and expensive convenience foods because they lost trust in simple ingredients long ago. So the cabbage sits there quiet while people pass it by. You do not have to be one of them. Here is what I want you to do this week. Buy one head of green cabbage, one onion. If you have bacon drippings, use them. If not, use butter. Slice the onion. Slice the cabbage. Heat the skillet properly. Salt it as it goes in. Cover it for a few minutes, then uncover it and let it soften and sweeten slowly until the edges begin to brown. Then serve it hot beside whatever you are already making, not as a health project, not as a forced vegetable, as real food. And tell me in the comments below, how did your mother or grandmother cook cabbage? Fried, braised, boiled with potatoes, turned into kraut, folded into noodles? The little family methods are exactly the kind of knowledge that disappears when nobody bothers to write them down. Next time, since today we have been talking about old cheap vegetables cooked properly, I am going to walk you through the old skillet way to make carrots taste sweeter than anything that ever came out of a glazed holiday dish. Same plain ingredients, same heavy pan, same old kitchen truth. Until then, stop boiling the life out of cabbage, give it a heavy pan and a little patience, and remember this: cheap vegetables do not become good because you dress them up. They become good when you finally cook them the way they were asking to be cooked all along.